And then from a corporate point of view, well, it's another 3 months.
Yeah.
Because companies have all sorts of other, corporate governance issues, the accounting opinion, the legal opinions, the board opinion, the shareholder relations issues. So it's 6 months if you're in a raging hurry. And for me, it was important because more than like half the market cap of the company was cash. Okay, there aren't many publicly traded companies where half their market cap is cash. And so I was sensitive to it. And I had sort of, when my stock got to $70 a share, right? Or we're trading $120 a share and we've got $60 a share in cash and you're trading a 1 times revenue, you're thinking, I've been forsaken, right? There's not much downside from here. There's only upside. I should do something. So I think that that the first jolt came March 2020, and we started in in August of 2020, we were the first company to put that $250 million buy on the wire. So call that the beginning of year 1 of major corporate institutional adoption. Now, what's holding people back? A couple of things.
FASB.
One is GAAP accounting. And the number one impediment to a company buying large sums of Bitcoin would be indefinite intangible accounting. Because if I buy $1 billion and it gets cut in half for a day, and then it goes up by a factor of 20, under GAAP accounting, I would show a $500 million operating loss and $500 million on my balance sheet. But under fair value accounting, I would show a $9 billion investment gain, and I would show 10 billion on my balance sheet. So people talk about volatility being a problem, but you've got different types of volatility. You've got fair value or economic volatility, and then you've got accounting or optical volatility. The optical volatility of the accounting is much more pernicious to a public company with a pristine GAAP, P&L, and balance sheet. And in an institutional environment where people judge you based upon your beauty, like based upon your conventional behavior. I'm going to put report out, and I'm going to tell everyone that I generated $8 a share in earnings, and they go blank. Okay, that's good. Or I'm going to print a report saying I actually lost $16 and I had a $500 million operating loss, and my operating business has lost money for the first time in 20 years. But by the way, we just made billions. And if they have net inflows of $500 million, they have to increase their securities exposure by the $500 million. They have net outflows, they have to decrease their exposure, right? So they're a finance company. Yeah, so the other implication is just we all should buy Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. And I have another model that
should buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, that no more than 350,000 people on Earth will never have more than one whole Bitcoin. And that is also deflationary. Over time, that will actually reduce down as, the George Soroses of the world and the Michael Saylors of the world start jumping into the fray.
What was your second question? The second part of your question?
The second question was regarding other treasuries. Do they get scared off if you've bought all the toys? No,
I actually think that we started a stampede of people putting it into their treasury. You couldn't have found a publicly traded company with $5 million of Bitcoin in August of 2020.
Yeah,
you couldn't have found one.
Yep.
And if you look at what's going on right now, there's got to be 36 or more by the end of this year. And you've gone from less than 5 million, like 1 or 2 million on corporate treasuries. And this is publicly traded companies, not all companies. You've gone from a couple of million on corporate treasuries, right, to 15 billion, to many, many, many billions. The thing that's, Coinbase just said they had like 9,000 institutional accounts. And I talk to private companies all the time. I know lots of private companies that are getting into it.
I know a plumber who has Bitcoin on his balance sheet, 3 employees. Think about that. So there's a lot out there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think in March, if you'd asked me in February of 2020, what I thought about Bitcoin and what I put it on my balance sheet, I would have said I wouldn't even buy it as a private investor, much less as a public fiduciary, right? I mean, and I wouldn't be sure, I'd be like, well, isn't that one of 10,000 cryptos people are all trading? So that's where it was with me, because I didn't have a need to focus on it. It's you don't need to embrace the idea of a paradigm shift in property or energy or money or currency. You don't need to question basic deep-seated values in the absence of a war, right? There's two ways that people change. One is they die, and the other is there's a war. Right? And that paradigm shift, there are two things that I didn't really buy into. One is the digital transformation of my operations, like not deeply. For example, I would have fired people that did not show up to the office in February of 2020. But by April of 2020, nobody could show up to the office and we Zoomed everywhere. And so in a matter of weeks, we went through a decade transformation in our thinking about digital marketing, digital sales, digital operations, et cetera. And I feel like that we had the same jarring shift with our balance sheet. In February, my view was, oh, well, I guess we'll get 2-3% interest on our money and we'll be conservative. And the inflation rate is 2 or 3%. And, Wall Street doesn't maybe understand it, but maybe I'll buy back some stock. Okay. And by April, my worldview was the nominal yield is 0. The inflation rate is minus 20%. I'm going to lose $300 million in the next 36 months if I don't do something. And there's no hope if I continue with the traditional strategy, and I have to take a risk. And so I think that was a jarring thing, and that shook everybody out of their slumber. And now from that point, look, James, I wanted to buy Bitcoin personally, desperately. I wanted to buy as much as I could. It took me 12 weeks to get the account and the KYC to do it. 12 weeks from the point that I desperately wanted to do it. This is an individual.
And you're very biting your nails, losing time, afraid it would all be sold out.
Yeah, like anxiety induced, right? And I went and I bought huge amounts at like $9,500 a coin.